Hi, Prerna. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning. Yes, I can.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. How about you?
I'm doing great. So, shall we start with our interview process?
Yes, please.
Yeah, good. Prerna, quickly, can you introduce about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Prerna, and I have 3 years of experience as a Java developer using Java, J2E, and Spring and Spring Boot. Um, I also have experience with databases like Oracle and MySQL. And I have hands-on experience in developing backend applications and some part of front-end applications also using Angular. Um, that's it for now.
Great. Good. We currently are working for which project?
I'm working for a retail store wherein I have a task of building web pages for them. So it's kind of like an inventory application where they get a lot of stock of their products. So I would have to design the databases and the tables that are required to implement this inventory application. So it would have web pages like on the home page, it had a small segment where it would have something called Deal of the Day. So it was built using Ajax call. So just that portion of the web page would refresh on its own depending on what deal is going on and how many hours the deal would go on and stuff like that. And the backend, like an admin module where these inventory is maintained, like the stock that they have and how much got sold and the reports and stuff like that. So this whole thing was built using Spring Boot with Data JPA and MySQL.
Great. Good. So, what are your day-to-day activities in this project?
So daily we would have a scrum call with our business analyst team. They are the ones who would gather the requirements that are needed for the project. And they would have a discussion with us, the web development team. They would explain what are all the requirements for one particular module to be developed. Say one web page, they would give us the requirements, what are needed for that web page, how should it look like, and how the layout should be. And we as developers pitch in and design as to what are the tables that are needed. Would the existing tables serve the purpose, or does it need any more, and how the layout should go, or like normalization process in designing the tables, and the backend modules, what are all needed, or say the methods that are needed to process this. Does the existing class would serve this purpose, or do I have to create a new one? So these kind of analysis and design and the development comes in later. And after the development, I would do the testing as well, my unit testing, and push it to the repository. So this would be pretty much um, daily activities that goes on.
Good. Right. How can you rate yourself in core Java out of 5?
I would say I am around 4. I may not be expert at knowing every nook and corner, but I think I am good at the pretty essential stuff that is needed.
Good. Good. So, can you tell me what is lambda expression and why we need that?
Okay, lambda expression was introduced in Java 8 to bring in the functional programming concepts. As you know, Java is an object-oriented program. So even for one single method, you would have to declare a class and write a method and write the function or the logic for the method has to be mentioned. Whereas with functional programming, with lambda expression, the whole thing came into one single line. You can also say that it is an anonymous method that you can write, wherein you do not have to mention any name for the method. You do not have to mention any access modifiers, and also the return type. So it takes away the burden of creating any such verbose that is needed to write a method, and it would bring it into a cut short method. Like say, for example, if I have a method to add two numbers, so I can just say to pass two parameters and get the return. And I don't even have to mention curly braces to if it is a single line, and I don't have to mention return, any such stuff. It eases the programming.
Yeah. Can you share your screen and can you write a Lambda expression for me?
Sure. 1 second.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Say, as in my example, I said adding two numbers. So what I can do is, if I were to write a method, I would pass two parameters. So I would say like A, comma, B. And this is the Lambda, I don't know how to say this, but this is the signal that you need to mention, saying that these are the parameters that are going into the method, and I would add them and return it. So you don't have to mention any return as well, because this is just one single line, and it would just process and send it back. I don't even have to mention the data types. Reason being, it would infer based on the parameters that are going in.
Great. How to call this Lambda?
I would need a functional interface to do so. Functional interfaces were introduced in Java 8. It is an interface which has only single abstract method. So using that, I can invoke a Lambda expression. Say, for example, in this purpose, I would call a functional interface like a function.
Okay. Yeah, write the functional interface and call that Lambda.
Yeah. Function, and I would pass, sorry, I'm passing two parameters. So I would say integer, and the return also will be an integer, where I would capture it and say, so I would invoke this, say apply, and pass. So that would be my code wherein I'm passing two integer values and getting a return of integer.
Great. Good. Good. What is the difference between function and predicate?
Okay, predicate is used to, it's basically a interface that returns, or the method that the predicate has returns a Boolean value. So it has a method called test. So if you were to do any logical expression, you can do that and get a Boolean return. Say it will return either true or false based on the condition that you mentioned.
Good. Good. What is the difference between string buffer and string builder?
Okay, string buffer and string builder came into picture after the string classes, because string is immutable. So they wanted to introduce mutable classes. So string builder and string buffer were built on those terms. And the main difference between string builder and string buffer is builder is not synchronized, which means it is not thread safe, whereas string buffer is thread safe.
What is the meaning of thread safe?
Which means the threads don't have to wait to access that particular variable. So when you say thread safe, which means only one single thread can access that variable or a block of code, whereas with non-thread safe is like multiple threads can access it at single time.
Good. How many ways we can create thread in Java?
What do you mean? Like,
What are the possible ways to create a thread in Java? I want to create a thread. How many options we have in the Java?
okay, you can either extend the thread class. I mean, like your class can extend the thread class, or you can implement runnable interface. And later on, you also have a possibility to do that with callable interface as well. With that, you can create a thread pool and pass your process to execute by that thread pool.
What is the difference between runnable and callable?
Okay, runnable is an interface. Once you implement, you would have to create multiple threads or multiple thread objects to run particular thread. Whereas with callable, you can use the executor services to create a thread pool and execute multiple processes with the given set of threads within that pool. And runnable, whereas implements the, like it has a method called run, which doesn't return any, it doesn't have any return type, whereas callable call method has a return type. It returns a future object. These are the differences I clearly remember.
What is the meaning of future object? What does it do?
Good question.
You told that callable will return the future object, right? So
Yes,
what is that
yes.
future
I'm
object?
just
What it does? What does it
I'm
do?
just recollecting. Maybe the it returns the what do you say, like the success process of that thread or not?
Right, right. So anything that whatever the object that you want to return after thread logic is executed can be called as a future object. Good.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Right. So what is thread local?
Thread local.
Right.
I'm not sure. Sorry,
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that.
Okay, good. So fine, no problem. Now, so you know that in the Java 8, several changes happened, right? What are the new features that introduced in the Java 8?
So the Lambda expressions, like we discussed, was introduced, and there were functional interfaces. The concept of functional interfaces even existed before, but they came up with an annotation called functional interface to make sure that such interface would have only one single abstract method. And default and static methods were introduced in Java 8, and optional was introduced, and date API changes happened. These are some of the things that I can roughly remember.
So earlier we can write only abstract methods in the interface. Now we can write default and static methods also in the interface from Java 8, right?
Yes.
What is the main reason behind that? Why they introduced default methods and static methods in the interfaces?
So the default method, both static methods were introduced to provide a backward compatibility. Say, for example, you have an interface and you have multiple classes that implement the interface. If you add one more method, then it would break all these implementation classes. So for such scenarios, to avoid such scenarios, they added a default method which gives a bare minimum implementation to that method. So any classes in future, if they want to implement that method, they can go ahead and override it.
Can you give any example method which is available as default in the Java?
The iterable, like for each method in iterable was introduced as a default method.
Perfect. Did you use Stream API in your project?
Yes, I did.
What is the main purpose of Stream API?
So Stream API would help you to, use your collections as a source and write your functional methods on top of it. You can basically process these collection data using streams.
Right. Can you write a program on the stream API? Assume that you have list of employee objects. I want to get the employees who are working in sales department and their salary above 50,000.
Okay.
Are you clear with my question? Should I repeat?
Yes. So I have to create first a class for employee.
You assume that you have list of employees. You don't need to write each and everything. Just main
Okay.
code logic I'm expecting from you. Assume that
Okay.
list of employee objects you are having already. From the list of
Okay.
employees, you need to give me the employees who are working in the sales department and having salary above 50,000 rupees. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Of employees that are having. Yes.
What is it? What is the written? What it is going to return?
Oh yeah. It would return list of employees. Yes.
Okay. Can you explain that code?
So what I'm doing is I'm using a filter method which accepts a predicate. So I'm passing my condition to the filter method. So it's gonna filter from the employee list whoever matches this condition, and I am trying to collect that and present it in a list form. So it would return me a list of employees which match this condition into this list.
Right. So can you write one more logic? Can you print the employee who is having highest salary?
Okay.
Now write another stream.
Yeah. So optional. It said maximum salary, right?
Yeah. So you have employees list. In that employees list, I want to retrieve the employee who is having highest salary.
Yeah.
Good. What is optional here?
So optional would return me if it matches and it returns me one single object. Otherwise, if it doesn't match, then it will return a null basically. So what I would do here is if employee is present. So this would avoid any null pointer exception when I raise any method call on this object, then it would not throw me a null pointer exception. To avoid such scenarios, they introduce the optional here.
Good. Fine. Yeah, you can remove this. Next. Yeah, you can clear your screen.
Yeah.
Write a Java program to reverse a string without using any predefined methods.
Okay. So say for example, I have a string. Something like this.
Right.
And I would use a string builder here. So this would reverse the string for me because I'm starting at the end of the string and retrieving single character at a time and appending to the string builder, and I'm printing it here.
Are you sure it is going to reverse the string?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes, this should.
Right. Can you tell me which collections you have used in your project?
Mostly we used array list, map, and some places a set as well.
Right. So could you please tell me in which scenario you used map in your project and which map you have used?
I used a hash map. So in a scenario where I had to collect the ID and the relevant, say for example, if I were to load on the front end the countries list or cities list, so in such scenario, I populated the map with the ID and its relevant name and send that through the REST API.
Got it. How hash map works internally?
So hash map uses a hash table as the data structure. So it also like the keys are stored as a hash set. I can say like it has bucket theory for that also. So the hash code is generated, and based on that, index is used, and it would store the value of the key in those buckets. Relevant index number is taken. So that's how the keys are stored, and their relevant values are also stored. As we know, like a hash map uses key and values. So in that bucket, it would go and store the key and its value. So
What is
basically
the
a hash code and its index number is generated.
Got it. What is the default value of hash map?
You mean the capacity?
Right.
16.
Its load factor?
0.75.
What is the meaning of that load factor?
Which means, say, when it is storing the values, if the first initial capacity reaches to its 75%, of occupancy, then it will generate one more with higher capacity and store all these values into that. So the limit where it reaches to the 75%. So that would be the load factor.
Okay. How hash map and tree map are different?
So hash map doesn't maintain any order, whereas tree map would order it in the natural sorted order. So if you want some sorting process or in an order that you want the hash map to give you the data, then you would go with a tree map. The internal data structure is binary tree.
Okay. Suppose I'm storing in the tree map. So assume that tree map dot put 1 comma some value in some integer number. And the second value I'm storing key as a string, value as a string. That means one value I'm giving as integer, second value I'm giving as a string. Then how it will sort that?
No, keys, tree map doesn't allow, I mean, like for the keys, you have to use, no, a homogeneous data is only allowed in tree map. It doesn't allow heterogeneous data, which means if you start the tree map with integers, then it has to be integers only. Otherwise, it'll throw a class cast exception.
But collections meant for storing homogeneous data and heterogeneous also, right?
Yeah, but tree map is exception. It doesn't allow heterogeneous data. As
Are
far
you
as
sure?
I remember. No, the keys are homogeneous, whereas the values can be heterogeneous. I'm getting confused between tree set and tree map. Yeah, tree set doesn't allow the values to be heterogeneous, whereas tree map does allow values, but not the keys. The keys should be homogeneous.
Okay. What is the difference between hash map and concurrent hash map?
Okay, hash map, with working with hash map, when you are iterating through um, the hash map, while retrieving the values, if you try to add one into it, then it would throw an exception. Whereas with concurrent hash map, it doesn't throw an exception where it would let the process go without having any hurdles. It is a thread safe also. Concurrent hash map is thread safe also, and it would allow you to modify while you are iterating through the map.
Okay. What is fail safe collection and fail fast collection?
So fail fast is not thread safe, and it would throw an exception immediately when you try to do something like this. As I explained earlier, fail safe is where it would not throw an exception, and it is thread safe as well.
Can you give any examples?
Like I said, fail fast is hash map, and fail safe is concurrent hash map.
Apart from these two?
With array list also, we have one called copy on write array list, and whereas array list is a fail fast one.
Good, good. What is properties class in Java?
Okay, properties class is where you do not want to write any hard-coded values within your program, because if you were to change something, then you would have to recompile and rebuild the whole program. So you would put them separately in a static file and read from those using get property and set property. So the properties class has these two methods. Using that, you can set and get the values from the properties file.
Okay. So are you using properties files in your project?
Yes, I mean, like the application.properties, if you see, that is kind of a properties file. Other than that, not anything specifically, but some we have used for emails, I would write a static file separately and read from that file, but not necessarily a property class.
Okay. Fine. Good. What are the new changes that happened to collections framework in the Java 1.8 version? Any changes happened to the collections in Java 8?
I don't know necessarily for the collections, but streams was introduced to work with collections. Other than that, I'm just thinking what else might have happened. I know optional was introduced. What else? A functional interface was introduced to work with Lambda expressions. I don't know. I can't recollect any.
Okay. Fine. I'm going to show you one program. Can you guess the output for that?
Yes.
Yeah. This is the program.
Demo.
So here I'm taking a class and I'm having a
Yes.
method called the M1 method. For that M1
Yes.
method, I'm taking integer as a parameter. Then I'm modifying
Okay.
the value which I have received. Here, this is
Correct.
my main method. I declared one variable, right? So first I'm
Yes.
printing that variable value. Assume that this is first print. And
Yes.
after that, I'm calling M1. I'm passing that I value. That I value is getting modified here. Again, after that, I'm printing that I value. So here in the print 1, what will be the I value? In the print 2, what will be the I value?
The print 1 will be 10, and the next one will also be 10, because Java is by value. It doesn't send the reference. So the I that you have within the M1 method is not being returned. So my answer would be 10 in both the scenarios.
What this concept is called as?
I'm like a pass by value.
Correct. What is the meaning of pass by reference? Does Java support for pass by reference?
Not directly, but if you work with objects, then obviously the object holds the reference to the location where it has its properties, right? So that way, when you pass an object from one method to another method, you can say that it is passed by reference, but actually it is still a pass by value only.
Good, great. Fine. So coming to exceptions, right? Oh, what are the common exceptions that you will face in your coding?
Say, for example, if I am trying to retrieve a record of an employee or something like that, and if the ID doesn't exist, then I might get an empty record. Or if the correct value is not passed, then also I might come across an exception. So such scenarios we handle by handling the exceptions.
How you are handling exceptions in your project?
So we would write our own custom exceptions by extending either from exception class or what's the other one? Runtime exception. So I would call the super constructors by passing my own custom exception message.
Okay, fine. So what is the difference between throw and throws?
Okay, throw is, say for example, you are trying to access a method that has a possibility of getting an exception, so that you either have to write within a try-catch block, or you can throw to the next higher level, saying that you have to handle this exception. So I would write that throw exception at the method level. Whereas throws is like you are potentially invoking an exception, saying that if so and so happens, then throw or raise an exception, basically.
Mhm. Okay, fine. Can you write a program which will give the deadlock?
I don't, I'm like, I can just write the methods, right?
Yep, right.
Okay, say for
You know
example,
what
I
is
have,
deadlock, right?
yeah, when one service is waiting for, or one thread is waiting for another thread to release, and they both mutually are waiting for the other thread to release a service. So in such scenario, you will encounter a deadlock which means it will go nowhere or the program execution will not proceed further.
Right,
So each thread will wait for it for one or the other services to release.
right.
Say I have a
Yeah, you
method
can take simple
M1,
methods, M1, M2, yeah.
yeah, and I have a synchronized synchronized block, say for example, and say I have one block like this, and I have another one. And if I try to write a code that is with a wait method, and here I'm waiting for the M1 is waiting for the M2 to release, and M2 is waiting for the M1 to release. And such scenario, you will get into a deadlock situation. I can't think of a really program perspective, but that's the whole concept of it.
Okay, okay. What is race condition?
RACE, race
Yeah.
condition.
Right.
I haven't heard of it. Sorry, maybe I did not
Okay.
come across that.
Okay, no problem. Can you explain solid OOPS principles?
Okay, SOLID is an acronym for 5 principles, which is S stands for SRP, which is a single responsibility principle. What it says is that a class has to handle only one type of functionality. You cannot combine 2 or 3 functionalities into one single class. Say, for example, to set a database connection and to write into a file or printing something. All these functionalities you don't write into one single file, but separate them into separate functionalities. So that is SRP. And O is open and closed, which means that your class should be open to extending and close to any kind of modification, which means you should be able to extend from that class and write your own child class, whereas you don't have to go tamper with the parent class and you have to make any changes. That is O. And L is list curves. Let me think. One is inheritance, and this one is also, it says that you have to extend your class. Your child classes can extend from the parent, but it should not blow up the application itself. Say, for example, if you're extending from, I can give you a scenario where you have a class vehicle and it has a method and properties, say to fill the fuel and open the doors. Now, my child class, if I have one as car and another one as bike, the method that open the doors is not relevant to the bike class. So keep them segregated. You know what I mean? So that's how the list goes. The L principle stands for. And I is segregate the interfaces, and D stands for Dependency inversion, if I remember correctly, principle, which means you have a hazard relation with the child class or another class, then you would create that first and then get to the parent. But these are necessarily 5 principles that stands for solid.
Okay, fine. What is your relevant experience on Spring Boot?
Okay, so with Spring Boot, we developed the REST applications, uh, with the data JPA calls to the MySQL database.
Okay. How to change the port number in the Spring Boot?
So I can do that in the application properties file. I can set a property saying server.port is equal to so-and-so number. So application properties, from application properties, the Spring Boot application would pick that value.
Okay. What is actuator in the Spring Boot?
Actuator. No, I do not have any idea.
Cool. How many microservices are there in your project?
We haven't implemented any microservices as yet. We have a monolithic application still. We are planning to go into microservices later on.
Okay, so do you have any idea on the microservices? What are the advantages with that?
Not completely, but overall picture as to like how the whole architecture goes. Like you have something called Eureka server and config server and admin server and message queues and stuff like that. I have rough idea about the whole architecture, but not in depth details.
Okay. How your project is deploying and where you are deploying your project, which server you are using and how that project deployed to that server?
So the deployment is in AWS. We use the Docker containerization and Kubernetes as orchestration platform. So as a backend developers, we push the code to the GitHub. So the Docker file, in the Docker file, we pull the application using the Git clone, and we do the Maven install, create the jar file, and basically containerize this using the Docker image and publish it onto the Kubernetes clusters in their pods.
Okay. Did you face any conflicts in the Git?
Sometimes, yes, with the Git merge.
Git merge. Then how you handle that?
So whenever if there is a conflict on the same line, the Git would show us some special characters as to like how the code has been merged and where the conflict is. So we would have to do that manually correction.
Right. Okay. What is the difference between Git fetch and Git pull?
Okay, Git pull actually pulls the content from your central repository onto your local repository. Whereas Git fetch will just show you the changes, but it doesn't actually pull that changes into your local repository.
Okay, what is Git bisect?
It would show the such commit which introduced the bug into the application.
Okay. Suppose I want to change my password in the Git client. How can we do that?
Using git config, you can connect to your Git repo and give your username and password, if I remember correctly. It's a one-time thing that you would do, but whenever your password changes, probably you would do that one more time.
Okay. So you told that you are using Docker in your project.
Yes.
Can you write a Docker file for Spring Boot application?
Okay. So I would start with a from statement using Java, say, I would say JDK 1.8 version, for example. And I would use copy. I would move it basically to a location where I want my jar file to exist. And I would use the entry point and and something roughly like this it goes.
Yeah,
So
but
what I'm trying basically to do is that I'm building my Docker image on top of the base, which is Java for me, and I'm copying the current location jar file into where I want my jar to execute, and I'm invoking Java -jar to run the jar file.
what that entry point will do?
So entry point is to run the command, basically.
So you want to run that jar file.
Yes.
Okay. Can you build a Docker image? So assume that this is your Docker file. How you will build a Docker image?
Okay. T. My image name. Yeah.
Image name. Okay, good. What is the purpose of Kubernetes?
So Kubernetes actually is for orchestration. It would help your application to run on multiple instances within a pod. So say, for example, if you have a monolithic application, if you run just one on its own, it won't be able to, probably it won't able to sustain the traffic that comes to it. So with Kubernetes, you can take the advantage of running the same application on multiple instances. That way it can distribute the traffic.
Okay, good. So how good you are in the database?
Fairly enough. It's been a while with working with Data API. We don't have to write the queries on day-to-day basis, but basic queries I should be able to do it.
So can you write a query to get the employee who is having third highest salary?
Okay. My table name is employees. You said third?
Yeah.
Highest, right?
Right.
Okay. Ordered by AP7 ESC. Highest to lowest. Element 3,1. So this should fetch me the third highest.
Order by salary, descending limit 3,1. Okay.
Yeah, so descending would put the descending order of the salary. So the highest you said, right? So the top highest would be on the first, the second, and third. So what I'm saying is start from the third and fetch me only one record.
Okay, good. Any idea on stored procedures?
I did, like quite a long ago, I did write stored procedures. It's like a programming that you would do on the database level. I don't exactly remember the syntax of that though. It's pretty much the same select queries you would write, but there are some if and conditions that you can mention within and declare variables also within stored procedure. So I know the pro forma of it, but I don't exactly remember the syntax of it.
Yeah. What is view in the database?
View is a replica of your original table, how you want to present it. So for example, I have 100 columns in an original table. I would just pick few columns if I were to present only a partial presentation of this original table. Then I can create a view out of this. So the view will not necessarily create a physical table, but it will represent a different structure of the original table.
Yeah. Did you hear about indexes in database?
Yes, using indexes, it helps you to search faster.
How to create an index?
I don't remember the syntax as I said.
Okay, cool. No problem. How do you make a REST call in the Spring Boot? Can you write the snippet?
REST call in the sense like get mapping.
I want to access a third-party REST API.
Oh, okay. So
I mean, the scenario is you are developing one application. From your application, you want to access a third-party API. Assume that you have a URL. How you will code it?
Yeah, I mean, like I would use in this scenario the REST template. So using REST template, say I can create pass a URL and get the response from that. And using that response, I'm like based on that response, I use it. Like if it is returning some data, then I would use that. It has two properties for get for entity and post for entity, but it doesn't support any other ones like put and delete stuff. So in that scenario, you would call the exchange method.
Can you write the code? Suppose I want to make a GET request for third party API.
Yeah. I don't exactly remember the code. I know it will be, let me think. And here I would pass the URL, whatever that is. I think. And on this RT, I will say get. No, get for entity users takes the URL. Okay. I would pass the URL and the say if I have any parameters to pass, that will be accepted in a whereas form. So I can pass, say for example, if I'm passing the ID, I would pass that. How do I get the response? I would get the response into the response entity. Say if it is returning a string or something, then something like this it goes. And from here, I would use that. Say I can show that.
Yeah, fine. So can we pass some headers in the request?
Yes. Yes, you can. By building a request body for a post method, you would actually send the header also along with it, right?
Yeah, even for GET request also, I want to send a request header. Saying that, for example, I want to send a book ID in the request as a path parameter, and I want the book data in the JSON format only. I want to tell to the third party API that I want the response only in the JSON format. How you will inform that in your request?
I think the second parameter, you can pass the header information and build that header information. I exactly don't remember the coding part.
Okay. Is there any alternate for REST template to make the request? Without using REST template, can we make a request, HTTP request to the third-party APIs?
Third-party APIs.
It can be any REST API. Basically, you are using REST
SOAP
template.
is there. So I mean, like with SOAP calls also, you can access
forget
third
about
party.
Forget about my question is not related to SOAP. I'm talking about only REST API. So here you are using REST template to make a REST call. Without REST template,
Correct.
is there any other approach that I can make a REST call?
I recently read that there is something called web client, using which also you can make a call. I haven't used it or studied about it either, so I can make a call on that. But even in my project, I didn't have to use the REST template, which is why I'm struggling here to write the code. But while studying, I did come across this REST template. But in my project, I didn't have to make a call to a third-party API, basically. So
Okay. Good. Now you told that you are using Spring Boot.
yes.
How to connect with multiple databases using Spring Boot?
So I can set the database properties in the application properties using mentioning the different databases and include those connectors in my pom.xml.
So directly, if you configure properties, will it connect with two databases?
No, but basically, if you have the connectors, based on those connectors, you can use. Oh, wait, how do you do that with the JPF repository? Good. I don't know. I haven't come across that situation. I only worked with one single database, which is MySQL. Or in dev environment, I used H2. So never experimented with two databases in one single application.
Yeah, one application should connect with two databases. So that is the scenario. Suppose I want to connect with my SQL database to get some data, and I want to connect with Oracle database as well to get some data.
Yeah, I understand that. But I haven't done practically myself, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question. But there might be for sure some, as I said, like these two are pretty much sure that you have to mention them in the application.properties file, and also you need to have those connectors in the pom.xml. But when it comes to the connectivity part, that's where I am missing the link. Like, how do you say to the application that go to this particular database to fetch data and or go to the other database to fetch the data? Because my repository would use with one single database, right? So I'm not sure practically how to implement those.
So you mentioned that you know Kafka also, right? Can you tell me the scenario in which you used Kafka in your project?
I haven't particularly used Kafka in my project, but you would, it acts as a barrier between or broker between one application to another application, in my understanding, where one application would pass the information as a message queue, and the other application can pick that message and process it. You know what I mean? Like if two services want to talk to each other, then the Kafka can act as a broker in between. So this will be a storage place where you will pass the information and store it, and the other application can pick the information from there.
Okay. How you are managing transactions in your application?
What do you mean by transaction? I mean, like Hibernate takes care of the transaction management, so I don't have to necessarily do anything. Other than that, I'm not sure what your question is.
So I mean to say, so database transactions, how you are managing in your project?
So we would use the JPA repository to make the calls to um, fetch the data or to add the data.
Okay.
So like a save method or find by methods and stuff like that.
Yeah, that JPA will take care of transactions automatically. How do you roll back a transaction? For example, I'm trying to insert two records. One record inserted successfully, second record is failed. Then I want to roll back. So I hope you are aware of ACID properties with atomicity. Either all should be success or none should be success. Two records I'm trying to insert, one record inserted, but second record is failed. Then I want to roll back. How you will do that in the JPA?
No, I haven't dealt with asset properties, but I understand what you're saying. I just assume that Hibernate internally takes care of the transaction management. So if something fails, it would roll back on its own. That's what my understanding was.
No, it won't do that automatically. We have to do it.
Okay, okay.
Fine. And what are the design patterns that you have used in your project?
In my application, only singleton.
Okay. Only singleton.
That is all I can think of. A factory we haven't used.
But
So
IOC will use that, right?
yeah, maybe internally.
Okay. So what is builder design pattern?
I have no idea.
Okay. What are the challenges that you have faced in your project? Any situation that you felt it's very hard? Most challenging
Well,
part in your job?
I would say based on the application that I mentioned, as I said, like making a Ajax call and populating that particular section of the page automatically change based on the number of hours, the time lapse or the quantity lapse. Based on that, the section has to change. So the next deal has to be picked up and populated automatically in either cases, like either the time lapsed or the stock is finished. So to implement that, I faced a little bit of a challenge. That's all I can think of.
How you solved it?
So I would make a conditional call based on every call it goes back. So I would check either with the time left or the quantity left. And then based on that, the next in queue would be given.
Okay. So now who will assign the task to you? Daily wise tasks in the project?
My supervisor, I would say like the team lead next to the higher level to me. He's the one who would segregate and assign tasks for us. So when the business analysts assign stories to the department, like development department, he's the one who would segregate and assign the task to the individual person based on their availability.
Suppose the given task timeline you are not able to complete. So how you will manage that?
Well, I would escalate and talk to him the challenges that I am facing, and I would seek his guidance or let him know that what are the hurdles that I have in completing my task.
Okay, good. Are you doing unit testing?
Yes,
How you are doing that?
we use JUnit and Marketo.
Which Mockito framework you are using?
Mockito MVC?
Like Power Mock, Easy Mock, which one you are using there?
I'm not sure of.
Yeah. Thank you, Prerna. I'm done from my side. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I'm good. I'm like, there are a few questions that I have to understand, some of them that I missed. But other than that, I do not have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
It was nice talking to you.
Thank you. Nice talking to you. HR will get back to you, Prerna. Thank you.